Castlevania Symphony of the Night has nearly infinite ways you could choose to play through the game. Many self-imposed challenges exist to help spice up playthroughs and test the skill of a player. Things like beating the game using only terrible weapons, or even beating the game in its reverse intended order. But recently, I found myself enthralled with the idea of beating Castlevania Symphony of the Night without killing any of the enemies. Normally, the game expects the player to kill many enemies and bosses to progress through the game's vast castle and reach the final boss, Dracula. However, there exists an ancient speedrunning category concocted all the way back in 2013, where it was discovered that it's actually possible to beat the whole game without killing a single enemy or boss. This is known as the Pacifist speedrun. Before I started running this category, the world record for Pacifist speedruns stood at about 1 hour and 9 minutes. And after I got to work and learned the speedrun, I was able to not only beat the world record, but I got a run that may not ever get beaten. But to explain why that is, I'm going to first need to explain exactly how the speedrun is performed and what about my world record makes it stand out as possibly unbeatable. This speedrun starts, like most runs for Castlevania Symphony of the Night, with the prologue of the game. Here, I'm able to defeat Dracula, but it doesn't count as a kill in-game. That makes sense, since the main character, Alucard, is not actually the one killing Dracula. And besides, Dracula gets resurrected later anyway, so does that kill even count in the first place? Ooh, spoilers I guess. Yeah, Dracula comes back to life. My bad. Anyways, once I gain control of Alucard, I make sure to jump over all of the wargs and zombies, trying to avoid taking damage wherever possible. Owie. Owie! Damn it. Stop spawning zombies! Oh my god, I'm gonna shit. Okay, I know how this looks, but trust me, this run really might actually be unbeatable, okay? So after getting juggled around for a bit, I do make my way to this room, where death normally takes away all of the powerful starting gear. Now, there exists many ways one could choose from to skip this encounter with death. But in this run, there's not really a good reason to do so, since I don't plan on killing any of the enemies anyways. And besides, all of the methods for skipping death would cause major issues later on in the run. If I started in luck mode and used the big toss mechanic to fly past death's room, I wouldn't be able to finish the run. This is because in a pacifist run, Alucard won't be killing any enemies, which means no gaining experience points, which means the game must be completed at level 1. And as it turns out, it's impossible to beat the game at level 1 while playing in luck mode. This is because, while in luck mode, you start with only 1 MP, which isn't enough to progress to the end of the game. If I were to skip death using a reverse shift line, that would either require me to kill this warg and level up, which is not allowed in a pacifist run, or I'd have to use my heart refresh to skip past death, but I actually need this heart refresh for a glitch later on, so I don't want to waste it here. So for those reasons, this is one of the few speedrun categories where it's actually faster to talk to death and lose our starting gear. After catching up with Uncle Death, I make sure to grab the Cube of Zoe relic, so items and sub-weapons can now spawn from candles. This relic is absolutely crucial for this run's success. After that, I make my way through the Alchemy Lab, making sure to cleverly maneuver past the enemies. And yes, this red skeleton can't actually die, so hitting him doesn't count as a kill. He stands back up after a few seconds, he's fine. And soon enough, I make my way to the first boss encounter of the run, Slagra and Gaibon. This is where I'd say the speedrun starts to get a little bit wacky. Normally, once Alucard enters a boss room, the doors seal shut behind him, and there's no way to exit the fight unless either the boss dies or a library card is used. And in this run, well, I was able to do this. This should work, right? Nice. So yeah, here I was able to skip the death trigger here and—
Hold it!
Clearly, those bosses were killed. They went into their death animation and the game considers them dead because the boss doors open up, and you killed them.
Objection!
Actually, if you look closely at the screen, you'll notice that Alucard doesn't actually level up after Slagra and Gaibon die. And Alucard needs 100 experience points to level up from level 1. If Alucard had actually been the one to kill those bosses, he would have gained that experience and the level up animation would have shown up on the screen, and the run would be invalid. What actually happened here is a glitch called a revenge tech. This glitch causes enemies to die without it counting as a kill for Alucard. Opening the menu after performing this glitch proves that no enemy has been killed and no experience has been acquired. By having multiple projectile hitboxes hitting an enemy at the same time, while Alucard is also inside of that enemy, it won't count as a kill, and the pacifist speedrun is allowed to continue. So with the murder accusations aside, I then make my way through the rest of the Alchemy Lab and the Marble Gallery, making sure to avoid as many enemies as possible and damage boosting wherever needed. I quickly make my way towards the next boss of the run, myself. Again, I'm able to perform a revenge check, however, this one is really weird. This is the only enemy in the game that works this way. By stopping time with the stopwatch subweapon and walking into the doppelganger, this causes Alucard to yet again gain no experience, and again, the kill does not count. So after beating myself, off I go to finally grab the Soul of Wolf relic. Maybe I could have phrased that better. This relic gives me the ability to transform into a wolf, and Alucard's furry form is useful for performing big jumps like this to reach high up places. After grabbing this garnet, I then make my way to the library. I then perform a precise wolf jump, then untransform mid-air. This gives me access to a dive kick, which I use to jump off this floating book. Oh, that was like pixel perfect. Actually making it on the platform without an extra damage boost is so rare. And all of this is so I can acquire the next relic for the run, the Fairy card. The Fairy card is a relic that summons the Fairy Familiar, which normally uses potions and items from Alucard's inventory to help him stay healthy. However, I could take advantage of the fact that the Fairy's dialogue when summoning her,
"Thank you for giving me life,"
can perform a huge glitch. While the Fairy is talking to me, I walk into the librarian's room. This starts the cutscene where Alucard and the librarian meet. But since the Fairy is still talking, her dialogue overwrites the cutscene dialogue, allowing me to cancel out of the cutscene while still being able to open my equipment menu. This is not normally allowed to happen, and I could take advantage of this to both equip the garnet I got earlier and sell it at the same time. This causes the game to sell my 0 available garnets, which causes an underflow glitch. Since the game doesn't allow for a negative number of inventory items, it gives me 255 garnets instead of -1. You can think of it like this. I told the librarian that I just created a new online digital currency backed by blockchain technology called Garnet Coin. And if you look at the market trends, you can see that Garnet Coin is clearly a stable market investment index equity. You cannot afford to miss out on this opportunity to invest. We're expecting an ROI of at least 6 by 2024, and we already have glowing celebrity endorsements like Slugger and Gaibon from the Alchemy Lab. So what do you say? Do you want to go to the moon with Garnet Coin?
Thank you.
After scamming the shopkeeper, I can now buy all sorts of useful items that I need for my speedrun. Things like the Jewel of Open, mana prisms, elixirs, library cards, meal tickets, throwing stars, fire boomerangs, anti-venoms, and most importantly, the duplicator, which gives me infinite usage of any single-use item or potion. And now with the duplicator equipped, I can finally perform the most important movement technique of the run, food dashing. Here, I'm using the meal ticket to constantly spawn random food while I dash around, because I'm hoping to find a specific food item before starting the next section of the run. I eventually find the toadstool, which is what I'm looking for, and I immediately use it to poison myself. And now that I'm poisoned, I'll take extra damage from enemies, allowing me to set up a massive damage boost called a Big Toss that allows me to fly quickly across this next section. Once in the clock tower, I then have to dodge a ton more enemies, making sure to use the stopwatch and invincibility from potions to help me pass through some of the scarier parts. I eventually make it to this room right here, and beyond this point is the boss fight with the demon Kurasamon. However, luckily enough for us, Kurasamon's boss room is actually quite small enough that it can actually be skipped entirely, using a glitch called a reverse shift line. This glitch tricks the game into sending Alucard into the next room over when going through a screen transition. And if done correctly, I can warp past this boss fight entirely and avoid any more murder accusations. Because I really need to lay low, the fuzz is hot on me right now. Now that I'm past Kurasamon, I can then enter the castle keep, which has the Leapstone relic waiting for me. I grab the relic, which gives me the ability to double jump, and I use my library card to warp back to the library. I quickly leave and make my way back to the marble gallery, and use the Jewel of Open I bought earlier to open this door. I then press this switch, which opens the path downward to the underground caverns. Here in the caverns, there are 2 key items for me that I do need to finish the speedrun: the Claymore and the Moonstone, both of which are located on the other side of this large gap. Here, I could take advantage of a niche movement technique called a double jump reset. By untransforming against a ceiling, this resets my ability to double jump mid-air, and with a few precise double jump resets, I clear this gap. Now, the Moonstone is an accessory that boosts all of my stats by 5 points, and the Claymore is a 2-handed sword that has the ability to thrust mid-air, which will be a useful movement option for the next part of this run. I then leave the caverns and proceed back to the marble gallery, and above this clock room is where the next major relic lies, the gravity boots. These boots will allow me to do large vertical jumps whenever I want. But in order to get up there, I'm going to take advantage of another niche movement option called Wolf Rising. Here, I'm going to use the thrust attack of the Claymore and the Wolf transformation to slowly gain height, making sure to refill my MP with a mana prism whenever it gets low. I do this enough to eventually make it up to this ledge. From here, I do another trick called a fire boomerang jump. By throwing 6 fire boomerangs, jumping, then immediately transforming into wolf, the game has to wait for the fire boomerangs to leave the screen before I can transform. However, the whole time the fire boomerangs are on screen, Alucard will continue to rise up. I then reach this spot here where I can wolf rise the rest of the way. After getting all this way up here, I grab the gravity boots and then leave for Alrox's quarters, where I then gravity jump all the way up here to grab a luck potion. And trust me, this luck potion is so important, you will not believe it. From here, I do a little bit of backtracking to get past the caverns and into the mines, so I can set up for the next major glitch of the run, Cerberus Skip. This glitch is really complicated, but I'll do my best to try and explain it here. So this boss fight with Cerberus blocks the path to the next section of the run, and there's not really any consistent way to revenge tech Cerberus. So instead, I have to do this. First off, after walking a little bit into the room, you activate the boss doors that come down from the ceiling. But these boss doors work very differently from any other set of boss doors in the game, and they can actually push you through the floor if you stand in the right spot. Once I'm inside the floor, I can now do one of the strangest glitches in the whole run. If I try and leave the room from the right side, I wouldn't be able to because there's some weird out of bounds geometry that blocks me. So in order to leave the room, I first have to do a thrust attack with the claymore to enter this weird state which makes Alucard move a lot faster and also gives him access to a dive kick. And for some reason, if you dive kick in this very specific spot and do a frame perfect heart refresh, it causes a glitch known as a shift line to occur. Shift lines are a strange type of glitch that essentially pushes the edge of the screen further back, changing how Alucard interacts with the castle geometry. After opening up this shift line, I can then go to the edge of the screen and then quickly transform into wolf and then quickly untransform, which changes Alucard's hitbox. That lets me barely squeeze through, skipping the boss entirely. And trust me, this glitch is just as annoying to perform as it sounds. But now, with Cerberus thoroughly skipped, I can begin preparing for the next part of the run. I enter the lower part of the mines and collect the demon card, yet another familiar card, but this one is used to press this switch, which opens up a secret area.
A switch. Why don't I press it and see?
With the switch now open, I dismiss the demon so he doesn't accidentally kill any of the enemies, and I warp back to the library. Once in the library, I make my way down underneath the librarian's room and use my newly acquired gravity boots to look deep inside the librarian's colon for a very special item.
Thank you.
Deep in the librarian's butt, I find the Ring of Arcana, which significantly increases rare item drops from enemies. After this, I warp back to the castle entrance and collect a holy water subweapon and save the game. And after all this setup, it's finally time to explain how unlikely a world record like this really is. Over 30 minutes into this run, I've been performing the movement and glitches near perfectly. But now, this next section is not only technically difficult, but also requires good luck. The reason I had to go out of my way to collect the Luck Potion, Moonstone, and Ring of Arcana is because there's a rare drop that is 100% required for a glitch coming up later in the run. I need a heart refresh to drop from this Venus Weed, or else the run is dead. And normally, the only way to get an enemy to drop an item is to, well, kill it. And since this is a pacifist speedrun, we're going to need to find another way to convince this Venus Weed to give us her heart refresh. Here, I have to perform yet another type of revenge tech using the Holy Water and Flame Stars. So here I throw 2 holy waters on the ground. I then use a potion for invincibility so I can walk inside of the Venus Weed. And then I throw as many flame stars as I can, as quickly as I can, to make sure that all of the hitboxes are overlapping. And if done correctly, the Venus Weed will die and it won't count as a kill for Alucard. It's quite precise, and if I mess up any of these actions, I will gain experience, a level up animation will be displayed on screen, and the run will be dead. And that's not even the hardest part. The odds of getting a heart refresh to drop without any additional luck boosts is about a 1% chance. And that's why I grabbed the Luck Potion, the Ring of Arcana, and the Moonstone. Combined, they increase the odds to about a 1 in 45 or about 2.25%, over doubling the odds that I get the rare drop. And even with these increased odds, this rare drop has killed several of my run attempts up to this point, with the potential of losing tens of minutes waiting for this rare item to drop. And during the world record run, well, this happened. Just gotta get lucky. Again? Oh! Oh! 8-minute gold? Are you okay. Everybody calm down. Welp. Let's fucking go. Oh my god. All right, calm down. Everybody chill. Getting the heart refresh to drop within only 4 attempts is insanely rare. I saved well over a minute compared to my best time, and now I'm 3 minutes ahead of my personal best and over 20 minutes ahead of the world record. With all things considered, there's only about a 15% chance to get a run that sees this item drop within the first 4 attempts. And 15% might sound like a pretty decent chance until you realize this is over 30 minutes into a speedrun with many other difficult glitches and tricks before this that could cause the run to end. So it's already incredibly rare to even get to this point during a speedrun, and to have it drop within the first 4 kills is the best luck anyone has ever seen. And I highly doubt anyone out there would be insane enough to attempt to speedrun this category and reset over a 15% chance 30 minutes into a run, with the best possible odds only happening around 2% of the time. Needless to say, this luck factor is a huge barrier to finishing runs, and I highly doubt anyone would dedicate their time to this. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. I don't know. At this point, some of you may be thinking, don't you already have a heart refresh? Why do you need a second one? Well, this next glitch coming up will showcase exactly why that is. See, the most useful relic in the game, hands down, is the Soul of Bat. It gives the player the ability to transform into a bat, fly around, and perform the Wing Smash spell. This spell is a fully invincible charging attack that can be performed over and over again to fly quickly throughout the castle. But the Bat Relic is locked behind a boss fight with the Lesser Demon, and even if I get past the boss fight, there's a Mist Gate blocking the path to the relic. And the form of Mist Relic is locked behind yet another boss fight. So at first glance, it looks like this run is going to be impossible to finish. Well, it would be impossible, if not for a very powerful glitch. Similar to how a heart refresh can create a shift line that manipulates how Alucard interacts with the edges of the screen, by utilizing multiple heart refreshes back to back, Alucard can slide across the screen while freezing the camera in place. And this is only possible by having one heart refresh in each hand on the inventory screen. This allows me to use multiple heart refreshes back to back without any gaps, keeping the screen frozen the entire time. And once Alucard is desynced far enough away from the center of the camera, I can unfreeze the screen and Alucard falls right through the floor. And if done in the correct position, I can fall right on top of the room with the Soul of Bat relic inside. And now that I have the most important relic acquired, there are just a few more obstacles standing in my way between me and the end of the run. Now, it is fastest to move through the castle by wing smashing over and over again. However, I do have to be very careful not to hit any of the enemies and accidentally kill them. It sure would be a shame to make it this far on the best pace ever and choke the run by accidentally killing an enemy. I quickly wing smash my way back to the castle keep, where I perform the next major glitch, Richter Skip. By performing a precise jump, I can squeeze the wolf past an invisible box designed to check to see if the player has saved Richter or not. If the player hasn't saved Richter using the holy glasses, it'll load a version of the room that leads to a fight with Richter. However, by completely bypassing that box, it loads the default state for that room, which just so happens to be the cutscene after saving Richter from Shaft. This skips the need to get the holy glasses, and I can move on into the inverted castle and towards the end of the game. Now from here, my goal is to get to the center of the inverted castle, defeat Dracula, and beat the game. But standing between me and the central clock room is either a boss fight to my left with Darkwing Bat, or to the right with Medusa. I go to Medusa and perform a glitch called a half-blood tech. Don't ask me why it's called that, I have no idea. But essentially, if I get sent into the big toss animation, whilst flying against the corner of the floor while in bat form, I get sent far enough through the floor that I clip through, allowing me to skip the fight entirely. From here, I dodge the rest of the enemies and make my way to the central clock room. Normally, after defeating the 5 main bosses of the second castle and acquiring the 5 pieces of Vlad, this room opens up and allows the player to enter the end of the game and fight both Shaft and Dracula. However, I can't kill any of these bosses. You know, it's a pacifist run and all. And besides, it's much faster to skip all those bosses and fly to this room instead and perform a reverse shift line. This glitch is very similar to how I skip past Karasamon, but this time I skip past a save room and warp into the ceiling above this hallway. From here, I wing smash through the ceiling and I end up on the other side of the hallway inside this save room, which is past the barrier that was blocking me from the end of the game. And now, all that is standing between me and the final boss is the Dark Priest Shaft. However, defeating Shaft does indeed count as a kill, so instead of entering the boss fight, I instead use the double heart refresh glitch to slide out of bounds. And once in the floor, I fly my way up to this spot and touch this out of bounds load trigger that warps me directly to the final boss. And now that there's no witnesses left, I can finally perform the one and only kill of this run. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. It really does help me out a lot. And if you want to see me break world records like these live, you should follow my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/dragonblitz. I'd love to see you in the chat sometime. And lastly, a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. I wouldn't be able to make videos like these if it wasn't for them. And a very special thanks to Microb, C, Eric Miller, Immortal Demon, Barnabas De Grey, Toby Bear, Crazy Fourblades, Arucado, Mr. Cigar, Lieutenant CYX, Clint, Soma Jean, TJ Foster, Atomic Dracula, Suchioto, Kenneth, Chaosvania, Jokum Palm, and WJB.